Just a quick trigger warning though, just so you guys know, this is a story involving 9 hikers who unfortunately did not make it out okay. So the story might be a little bit more macabre and intense. So just so you know, if you do not want to hear about this, not something you're into, feel free to come back at a different time. We're coming at 7 p.m. We'll be joined by a guest. My gums are bleeding. And he's going to be talking about writing and making comics and making a business out of it. And then we're going to be playing some Fortnite. So, if you'd rather come back for that, come back around 7. But until then, story might be a little darker. Hi, Philistine. Welcome in. Okay. On January 23rd, 1959, 10 hikers set out for a winter trek through Russia's Ural Mountains. One turned back after several days for medical reasons, but the other 9 continued along their route. They had planned to send a message back to their sports club about 3 weeks after taking off. So when the club didn't hear from them by February 20th, a search party set out to find the hikers. Crystal, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. What the hell? Over the next couple of weeks, the search party found the first 5 of the hikers' bodies spread out over the snow. They were in various states of dress and had bizarre injuries, with one appearing to have bitten off part of his own knuckle. Months later, after some snow melt, investigators discovered the bodies of the remaining 4 hikers. They had even more inexplicable injuries. One had a fractured skull, another had a twisted neck, 2 were missing their eyes, and one of the bodies, with no eyes, was also missing her tongue. The gruesome fate of the 9 hikers, which generated theories ranging from natural disaster to secret weapon testing to an attack by Yetis. Although some theories are more plausible than others, the Dyatlov Pass incident, as it is known, remains a continuous and unsolved mystery. Hi, Mystical! Welcome in! I hope you're doing well! I've been talking about the tent that was ripped open. We're getting there, Okay. Dyatlov Pass, named after student who planned the trek. The Dyatlov Pass, the section of the Ural Mountains that hikers were trekking to, is named after the leader of the fatal expedition, Igor Dyatlov. Dyatlov was a 23-year-old student studying engineering at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Soviet Russia. He planned the trip with 8 other students at the institute who were in their early 20s. All of the students were experienced hikers, as was the sports instructor in his late 30s who joined the expedition. I love learning something different. Yeah, the story is pretty crazy. Hello Zarikari, how you doing? About 5 days into the journey, student Yuri Yudin decided to leave the hiking team and head back to sciatica flare-up? Because he had a sciatica flare-up. Sorry, I thought he was heading back to there. I was like, what? A sciatic flare-up. If he had stayed with them just a few days longer, he might have died whatever accident killed them. That's because around February 1st, the 9 hikers pitched their tent for one last time. When the search party found the tent, it was collapsed and covered in snow. Inside the hikers' belongings were relatively undisturbed. The team found the hikers' boots, clothes, and equipment nearly arranged in the tent, and the food was sliced up on a plate as if the hikers were preparing to eat. The tent was slashed open, and as a seamstress later observed, someone had made the cut from inside. The first 2 bodies the search party found were those students Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Privodnichenko, several hundred yards away from the tent. They were lying in their underwear next to the remains of a fire. A medical examiner later noted that Kronischenko had burns on his body and a piece of flesh in his mouth that he had bitten off of his own hand. The searchers found the bodies of hiking leader Dyatlov and Zenaida Kolmogorova. I'm so sorry, I'm gonna butcher these names. One of the 2 female students on the hike in a different location that suggested they were trying to head back to the tent. Later, searchers found the body of Rustem Slobodin, who also appeared to be trying to make his way back to the tent when he died. So I do have a picture of all of the hikers. So this is all of them here. Let me go ahead and turn off my webcam for just a second so you guys can see. I could always make it smaller. Let me just make it smaller for a second so you guys can see. But these are the hikers here. So we have Ludmila, Yuri, 2 Yuris. So these are the ones found next to the fires. We have Rustin, Alexander, Ole, Igor, Daya. I've seen some YouTube videos on this. They find 2 under a waterfall frozen to death. Sounds like Mafia, but it's not Mafia. There were no footprints and exit wounds. It's crazy that, like, yeah, so far, like, the tent was found to have been, you know, cut from the inside. Yeah, these are the hikers. Yeah, let's continue our story. I do have some more photos, so to show you guys. This is a picture of them on their expedition. Let's see if I can make this bigger. This is a picture of, like, just the snowy conditions and everything that they were going through. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, just pretty crazy. Just the way they were found is insane. Like, that must have been a crazy storm, but for, like, the flesh to be found inside his mouth and all of that. Here's another photo of them before the incident. It's really sad. Yeah, but some people think it was like an avalanche, but that doesn't answer the questions like, why was the tent ripped open from inside? Were they just freaking out and trying to get out of their tent? They couldn't get the zipper. Let me go back here. No worries, let me see. Take care. So there are photos of some of the bodies, like, found in the snow. But again, those I don't think are appropriate to show on Twitch. But I do have, like, the tent, the ground surface. Go back over here. Okay. Looks angry. Some say the fire started inside the tent. Oh, so maybe that's why they were trying to, like, rip out, like, get out of the tent. Why, like, still with, like, a knife? Why rip open? Avalanche seems like the most likely cause here. The different causes of deaths. Why? All 5 students appeared to have died from hypothermia, which can cause erratic behavior and paradoxical undressing. A phenomenon in which people start to undress because they feel hot even though they're freezing to death. But there were still 4 bodies missing. That May, when more of the snow in that area had melted, an indigenous Mansi hunter discovered the remains of what appeared to be a snow den. Inside, rescue workers found the bodies of Alexander Kovatov, Nikolay Thibix, and sports instructor Semen Zolo Taryov, and Lyadmila, the second female student on the trip. For 3 of these bodies, the cause of death didn't seem to be hypothermia. Thibix had a skull fracture so severe there were pieces of bone in his brain, while Zolo Taryov and Dubinina had crushed chests. Both Zolo Taryov and Dubina's eye sockets were empty, and Dubina's was missing her tongue. The initial investigation into the deaths couldn't determine what crime had taken place, and ended up in concluding that the hikers had died from compelling natural force. Hi Retro, welcome in. I hope you're doing well. Some Russian citizens wondered if the Soviet government was covering something up. The discovery of some of the hikers' clothing contained traces of radiation fueled speculation that the hikers had died in some kind of weapons testing disaster. This radioactivity on the clothing could be explained by the fact that 2 years before, there had been a nuclear incident known as the Kishtim disaster. One of the hikers on the trip had lived in the contaminated zone, and another had helped with the cleanup. Despite this, many Russians continue to suspect that the government was hiding something. Theories about what happened have included Yetis, the KGB, and the CIA. The slab avalanche theory. In 2019, the Russian government reopened the Dyatlov Pass incident. Andrei Kryakov, the prosecutor who led the new investigation, proposed a slab avalanche theory. The slope at which the hikers planted their tent wasn't steep enough to suggest there had been a traditional avalanche, but the Kryakov theorized that it was still possible for a slab of snow to slide out over the tent. This might have caused the hikers to fear that a larger avalanche was imminent, could explain why they would cut their way out of the tent and run away without grabbing their boots. Kiryakov speculated that the hikers ran to what they thought was a safe distance from the tent, then started a fire and dug a snow den. The snow den could have collapsed on the hikers who were inside, causing the severe injuries found only in the bodies of the area. Scavenging animals could have eaten the missing eyes and tongues. Those outside the tent would have died from the cold. We have it tested. We're almost done with this, and we'll watch some videos. It's BIOS update. No, let me see. That sucks. I just finished up work and now scampering in here. How you doing, Retro? We're taking a look at the Dyatlov Pass incident that occurred back in the 50s in Russia. So the slab avalanche theory is tested. After Kiryakov released this theory, 2 researchers in Switzerland decided to test it. In 2021, Johann Gami and Alexander M. Puzerin published a paper in Communications, Earth, and Environment that used a mathematical model to determine if a slab avalanche was possible given the location of the tent, weather conditions at that time. They concluded that it was indeed possible. Whether it really happened, that way is another matter. We do not claim that now we have the final explanation of what happened, says Person, who is a professor of geomechanics and geosystems engineering at ETH Zurich. We added plausibility to the avalanche theory. What they're describing is possible, says Ethan Green, director of Colorado Avalanche Information Center. Is it likely? That's pretty hard to tell. Jim McElwain, a professor at geohazards at Durham University, points out that slab avalanche usually occurs at steeper inclines than the one in the Dyatlov Pass incident. Unlikely, but that doesn't stop it being the best explanation, he says. I don't know what else it could be. So the avalanche theory makes sense. This wasn't the best time to have made dinner. Why, Patchy? You eating snow? Like, it makes sense for that, but it doesn't really explain the other 4 that were found later, right? With their eyes taken out and their tongue taken out. Like, it could have been an animal, but that's a really precise thing to just be missing, which is weird. If they're 100% climbers, they would never put themselves in that position. We don't want to victim blame here. You know, they were hiking. We have to assume that they were doing what they could, and whatever happened is definitely an unfortunate circumstance. You know, we don't know what position they were in exactly because none of us were there at the time. We don't know if they acted, you know, with the best of their knowledge in that moment because we don't know exactly what they went through and how terrifying all of that must have been. But it's really interesting. There's just some things that are like missed out, but maybe it is like the theory of, okay, they're experiencing like extreme hyperthermia and they're doing crazy things. We don't know why he was like biting his own like hand off or what was going on there. Very, very unfortunate. But we're gonna watch a video. The video might contain more like sort of graphic stuff, so your discretion is advised. I'll like try to like pull away if it does though. They're covered in stone ice. The avalanche makes sense. But let me see, not the ones that were like found in the cave, right? With their like tongue and eyes missing. On them at all when you're in whiteout and you can't see, sometimes you have to settle down. I would hug a tree and set my tent between a few trees. Your discretion. Hello, Gray. Welcome in. How are you doing? Oh yeah, Mr. Bond did want to hear. Okay, let's check out this one first.
I'm Ryan, that's Brent.
I was gonna do this one, but let me see how we're doing on time. Pulling data on them, traces of radiation. Places of your discretion, Haven. Alright, let's take a look at this. No! He doesn't have Gray's twin on! The guy's fun. I don't know who Brent is. I'm so sorry, Brent. We want the other guy.
Let's do this. This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we're covering Dyatlov Pass, It's probably one of the weirdest cases out there.
He says that every time.
Even your precious science won't save you today.
Okay.
On the evening of February 2nd, 1959, a group of 9 skiers led by Igor Dyatlov died near their campsite next to Otorten Mountain in Russia. The horrific state of the campsite was discovered on February 26th by a rescue
another
team.
guy that,
2 of the 9 bodies were found by the tree line about a mile away from camp. And despite temperatures dropping to negative 30 degrees Celsius, the 2 bodies were curiously wearing nothing but underwear.
Where were their clothes?
Oh, you'll find out.
Okay.
Another 3 bodies were found between the camp and the trees. One of them had a fractured skull. However, doctors at the time determined that the cause of death for all 5 was hypothermia. Strangely, the remaining 4 bodies of the 9 original were not found until 2 months later. Of these 4, 1 had a fractured skull, 1 had crushed ribs, and 1 woman had crushed ribs and
the radiation
a missing
is also
tongue.
interesting.
Whoa.
Oddly, these 4 bodies that were found
I
later
don't know
were
too
wearing
much
the
about
clothes.
radiation, but if someone was affected by radiation 2 years ago, are they still carrying that radiation around with them? Yeah, I'd rather see both of you. But I'd rather see him in this video, yes. Unless you're gonna be in the video. You can sign up for BuzzFeed Unsolved.
Of the previous bodies that were found 2 months earlier. Even more bizarrely, when these clothes were tested,
catch up
they
what
were
we're
found
talking about? Yes. So we were talking about the Dyatlov Pass, where 9 hikers or skiers went missing. This was a mountain in Russia, and it's a very snowy season. They didn't really they went missing, and then they found them. And when they found them, they were all dead, and 4 of them were missing. They were found in a cave, like their chests were crushed, like their eyes were missing, and their tongue was missing. And then 2 of them were found by like a fire. They didn't have their clothes on. They believe that a lot of them died by hypothermia, but it's just there's a lot of theories about how they died because it's not certain. Nobody knows exactly like why they all ended up separately. Their tent was ripped open, but it was ripped open from the inside. So there's just a lot of theories about what happened. Radiation really doesn't really go away. And Nagasaki, Hiroshima, there's an accident that happened in Russia and another one in China, messed up scars. Oh yes, yeah. Well, what's it called? Chernobyl and stuff. But like, just like on clothes as well though? It just sticks to you?
Be radioactive.
Interesting.
In fact, there were reportedly traces of radiation all around the campsite.
Number 1, what kind of radiation? Alpha, beta, gamma?
Does it matter? It's radiation.
Well, lots of things have radiation. Like, that word in itself is not necessarily as scary as one might think.
The radiation becomes even more puzzling when combined with the fact that there was no outward trauma to the bodies. The injuries found in the bodies were caused by a force determined to be too strong for a human to cause. The creepiest detail, however, is that there was no evidence of an outsider entering the tent. The tent was ripped from the inside.
How do you look at a tent and know, this was ripped from the inside?
How did you determine any of these things they determined?
I'm just wondering if you know. If you don't know, okay, cool. Just say, they're facts unknown, but that's what the detective said.
Anyways, let's get to the theories now. One theory is that there was an avalanche that buried the tent. That would explain the tent being cut from the inside, and would also explain the deaths by hypothermia.
That doesn't explain the clothes, though.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. There's an effect called paradoxical undressing, where disoriented hyperthermia victims remove their clothes because their bodies feel like they're burning. This would explain the nearly naked bodies, but this theory has no answer for the radioactivity, nor does it have an answer for the missing tongue. So that theory to me is done.
What? How is avalanche out?
Wait, Brent is pretty
funny. How does avalanche cause radioactive forces, and how does an avalanche rip someone's tongue out?
You didn't say her tongue was completely gone. You said her tongue was cut off.
It says missing tongue.
There are some translation things going on here from Russian to English. I'm just saying.
Another theory is that a Soviet test missile caused the deaths. A doctor on the autopsy team said an explosion could have caused some of the injuries.
Not unless I guess they're covering it up.
However, no evidence of an explosion was found, and no records of a missile launch were located. Something I didn't mention earlier was that the expedition originally had 10 skiers, but one of them left early due to an illness, a man named Yuri Yudin, making him the lone survivor of the trip. I bring this up because Yudin helped identify items found at the site. But there were some items that he couldn't identify, one of which was a cloth that he claimed looked to be of military origin, as well as skis and glasses, leading him to believe that perhaps the military found the bodies of his friends before the rescuers did. maybe trying to cover something up.
We don't know if like the person asking the question was leading him in any way to be like, does this cloth remind you of military cloth? Like, you know, it does, actually.
It's like a making a murderer.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, there was no evidence of a fucking explosion near there. That's kind of hard to cover up.
Well, not if a missile hit the top of... You ever see Mulan when she does the thing?
Okay, right now you are citing an animated feature film by Disney. On to the next one. This next theory, even I will admit, is completely bananas. Some suspect that the group was actually attacked by a Yeti.
All right, next.
This theory even commanded 2 hours of a Discovery Channel special called Russian Yeti, The Killer Lives, in 2014. However, there was no evidence of a Yeti, and furthermore, I can't imagine a Yeti taking the time to cover its tracks.
Either way, everyone knows that the Yeti is a peaceful creature.
Not according to Russian Yeti, The Killer Lives. This brings us to our final and most popular theory. And I imagine you saw this one coming. It's aliens.
God.
All right, hear me out here. There's actually a lot of reasons why this makes sense. There are supposedly reports of bright flying spheres in the area in February and March of that year. Here's a quote from lead investigator Lev Ivanov. Quote, I suspected at the time and am almost sure now that these bright flying spheres had a direct connection to the group's death, end quote.
Yeah.
Even more peculiar, Ivanov was also ordered by Soviet officials to close the case. Aliens would also perhaps explain the radioactivity found at the site. It would also explain the inhuman trauma caused to the bodies. And as far as no evidence being found of an outsider from the tent, I think it's safe to assume that if they're out there, aliens have gotten pretty good at covering the tracks.
The bodies are found months later, the tracks will be gone by then.
Missiles.
No!
You're going aliens over, a possible missile.
Did they know
I think they're both equally plausible. Maybe that's why they ripped the tent open from the inside. Maybe they saw something they didn't want to see and they got so scared that they were trying to retreat and they were like, fuck zippers.
No! Yes, how?
Because there's no evidence of a fucking missile blast.
There's no evidence of a fucking alien ship landing on a mountain.
That's because we wouldn't know what evidence of that looks like. And if there was... What are you talking about? No, fuck you. Regardless, in the end, authorities supposedly determined that the deaths were caused by a unknown compelling force.
I agree.
Consequently, the case remains unsolved.
Based off the information in front of us, I go avalanche number 1, military cover-up number 2.
But you can't say it's not aliens. That's my point.
No, because it doesn't say aliens. It doesn't prove aliens. You cannot connect the two other than you want to.
Exactly.
I think it proves a little bit, that there may be alien life out there. I think it's proof that maybe we're not alone. But
they didn't prove how it was aliens.
I don't think really there's any conclusion that you can come with based off these facts.
So what do you think happened then?
I don't know. There's not enough information. That's why it's unsolved.
Yeah, I don't know.
What would a compelling force be? You know what a compelling force sounds like to me?
Force. I mean, avalanche does seem like the most likely. The military cover-up, it's like getting a little like conspiracy theory type, trek. But at the same time, knowing about how much they tried to cover up Chernobyl and how much their government did, cover stuff up back then, it's not impossible that if something did happen, that they would try to cover it up. They actually think it was aliens. I have a beachfront property in Nebraska to sell you. There was a lot of cover up. So it doesn't seem like absolutely impossible. Avalanche, Occam's razor, yeah. I mean, most likely it was an avalanche. And then the other 4 with the eyes and the tongue, probably animals. Because they were lost for like a few months, those 4 that were missing the tongues and the eyes. Let me go back. Oh my god, Wonder! I think we can do something nice and easy. What the hell? I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Wonder. There's a horror movie from 2013 inspired by this. What movie, Circus? It's the closest one I had. Okay, I'm gonna watch this other one that kind of like details it a little bit more. Eyes and tongue surgically removed? I don't think so. Well, did it say it was surgically removed? I think they said it was surgically removed. They just said they were gone. I feel like they'd be able to tell if it was surgically removed, and they would have been looking for something else for that. But they said that they're missing. Is Friday 13th still a thing? Yes, it's when there's a Friday. And that day is the 13th. Future, how you doing? Thank you so much for 37 months. Thank you, I appreciate you so much. How you doing? I hope you're well. At the autopsy, they said it was surgically removed. I have to agree, alien sounds more logical than radioactive Yeti. Yeah, which one do you like more, the aliens or the Yeti theory? I don't know if we want the Yeti to get a bad rap, though. You know? Stop being sensible was obviously alien lizard people. Neither. Both are ludicrous. April Fool's isn't a thing in Canada? Really?
In early 1959, a group of hikers decided to head out on an expedition across a mountainous region of Western Soviet Union. The group consisted of 9 experienced men and women greatly familiar with the Siberian wilderness. Yet, this adventure would prove to be their last. Despite a criminal investigation, photographs and journal entries, the case remains unsolved after more than half a century. This is the case of Dyatlov Pass.
Okay, also, I'm gonna be honest. I thought this was... Isn't there another story about some hikers that get stuck and then assume that they resorted to cannibalism? I always thought that that's what this story was, and I was so wrong. I had the wrong story. Donner party, thank you. Ural Mountain chain is the geographical border between...
In the early morning of January the 23rd, 1959, a ski and hiking team of 10 boarded a train headed for the Ural Mountains in the middle of the Soviet Union. The group consisted of 8 men and 2 women, with Igor Dyatlov as the group's leader. As the train slowly advanced deep into the mountainous Siberian taiga, the group diary received a final entry. I wonder what awaits us on this hike. Will anything new happen? Over the next few days, the group continued to alternate between modes of transportation. First a bus, then a truck, then a horse and sleigh, and eventually they proceed on foot and skis. On January the 28th, one of the...
What the heck? Thank you so much! Thank you for the 5 gifted subs! Holy hell! Thank you! There must be something wrong with me. I can handle watching Invincible The Boys, but the moment horror stories pop up... What the heck? Mino, thank you for the 5 gifted subs! What the heck? Thank you so much! Thank you, Mino! Oh my gosh! Mino, I'm gonna get you up on the wall. Lucian, you're already on the wall as well. Thank you so much. I'll get you both songs. Thank you so much. Agaruten, Preacher Co, Tracy G, Erie Whoosh, Toei Jew, Street Grind, Mr. Crunchy, Obo, Chronic, and Jaguar. Oh my god, everyone, oh my god, Lucy, what is happening? Hold the front door, what is happening? Thank you so much. Oh my god. I'm gonna have a heart attack. What? Let me see. You can dance with the Lord Leto. She go to Ken. Tanad. What are you, Flame? Thank you so much. Let me see. Happy September. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Snowy Mountains can be a scary place. Yeah, Circus. It's a very scary time, especially for these hikers. What was the purpose of this hike? Was it just for fun and they unfortunately met their ends? I think so. It was like a skiing trip night that they were doing with some other people from their school. Let me see, and thank you so much, Lucian as well. What the hell? This hype train is too much. is too much. Oh my god. We have gone off the rails now. Where is my pen? Also, in my desk. Did not find my Sharpie, but I put my pen away. Why I can't find it. Thank you so much. Holy hell. Future, thank you so much for resubscribing. I really, really appreciate it. Should get Mino on the wall. Thank you so much, Mino. Oh. Since I don't like camping, daytime can be fun, but the moment it turns nighttime, it's literally survival mode. I think it depends where you're camping. I went camping for the first time, and it was like a little scary, but at night, but there's so many other people around that, and like I had signal and everything. It wasn't like remote. I feel like camping is cool as long as it's not like, you know, super isolated. Mino, thank you so much for each on the wall. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it a lot. Thank you guys so much. Let's get some songs from Mino, Lumacy, and Lucian. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for your support. Keeping these streams running really means a lot. There was a Uruguay Flight 571 disaster from the Andes that led to cannibalism. Came 2 movies based on that incident called Alive and Society in the Snow. Ooh, that's really interesting, actually. I've not heard of those. Priscilla, do you like spooky stories? We like spooky stories. We do a lot of like, we'll do true crime theories on here a lot. Chris, I think what's different for me is that these stories are real. We're like, The Boys, I know it's fake, and I know it's like movie makeup and stuff. When we're talking about these cases, you know, they're real people, and they had real lives, and they met unfortunate ends and too early. And I think sometimes that's harder to look at and to swallow, at least for me. It's just, you know, it's more real when you think about it, and it's really sad. All right, let's get you guys songs. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lucian, for the sunshine that you bring. Yeah, we appreciate you. Thank you for all you do. It means a lot. Thank you for being you. It's so sweet, all that you do. Thank you, Lucian. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, Lucian. Thank you. Give me no Lumacy songs as well. Thank you so freaking much. Holy hell. Thank you, Mino. I hope you know how much we adore you. You're so cool. I hope you know you're so lovely too. It's insane, but you could heat up the snow. With all the kindness that you bring me, know you're so wonderful. Thank you, me know you're oh so cool. Mino, thank you so much. It's so sweet. August, probably around like 7:30. What? I got a hype chest. I got a moat. What the heck? What the heck? That's so cool. Wait, look at that. I got a little chest. It gave me a gift. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. That's crazy. Level 5 hype train. Let's get... Let me see a song. Let me see. You mean a lot to me. Thank you for being you. Let me see. bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Thank you for the hype train. Thank you for the gifted subs. I greatly appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much for your support. It's September and it means a lot. Thank you so much, Mino. If you want a postcard as well, I can send you one for free. Just message me. Let me know you like one. Address, and we'll get that out to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Alright, we're gonna continue the story. Thank you guys so much. It really means a lot.
The hikers named Yuri Yudin had begun to feel quite ill and eventually decided to head back, while the remaining group of 9 continued as planned. These photos were taken just before they parted ways, and it would be the last time he saw his friends alive. The group resumed their expedition across the snow-covered outback and documented everything of note using diaries as well as multiple cameras. Recovered photos and journal entries suggest that the trek progressed as one would expect, with no unforeseen complications. Just lots of snow, bitter cold, and an increasingly arduous landscape. On February the 1st, they reached the foot of a mountain known to the indigenous Mansi population as Dead Mountain. They spend the better part of the day progressing up the slope and eventually decide to set up camp only a few hundred meters from the peak.
Whatever, how do you say it? Chekhov's?
These are some of the last photos recovered from the cameras, and the last sentence of the final entry reads, "It is difficult to imagine such a comfort on the ridge, with shrill, howling wind hundreds of kilometers away from human settlements." A few weeks later, friends and relatives begin to worry. No one has heard from Igor or any of the other members of the group. After much debate, a team of volunteers eventually head out to find them. On February the 26th, the search party is finally able to locate the camp on the slope. It's obvious to the first at the scene that something has gone horribly wrong. The tent is in scrambles, covered by a thin coat of snow. The hikers' belongings and equipment was found orderly placed inside the tent, but the tent itself had been slashed open with a knife from the inside. The next day, 9 pairs of footprints lead the search volunteers down the slope towards the nearby woods. Given that the footprints left rather mild indentations in the snow, would suggest that they descended the slope in a rather calm and orderly fashion, as opposed to running away in panic. The footprints could be tracked for about half a kilometer from the tent until the trail was completely covered by snow. So they continued in the direction of the trail and under a large cedar tree at the edge of the forest, next to the remains of an improvised campfire. They found the frozen bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonoshenko. It would take over 2 months for the bodies of all 9 hikers to be recovered. The first 2 were found severely underdressed. No jackets, no pants, no gloves, hats, boots, or anything else one might expect given the frigid climate. Only light shirts, underpants, and socks. At the time of their death, it would have been around 30 degrees below zero. The cedar tree had signs of damage, as if someone had climbed it, with branches broken up to 5 meters high. Perhaps they were attempting to locate a tent in the pitch black darkness, or perhaps they were trying to hide from someone or something. The next 3 hikers were found at varying distances between the tent and the tree, covered by a few centimeters of snow. They were better dressed than the previous 2, but not by much, as they still lacked essential items such as boots, hats, and gloves. They were all found facing the direction of the tent as if they were struggling to return at the moment of death. While some of them had sustained minor injuries, all 5 had died of hypothermia. It should also be noted that 4 of them had died while intoxicated. The last 4 hikers were found at the bottom of a small hill.
I don't know if this is a fact. I would have to double check. But isn't there a thing, don't you freeze faster if you have alcohol in your system too? Because your body can't regulate itself. I forget exactly what it does, but you'll end up freezing faster if you have alcohol in your system, which is crazy because maybe they just didn't know that information. If you're in like that cold of climate, I feel like drinking is something you'd be wanting to do. People have went back and forth on this. I'd have to look it up to be for sure, but I don't know if that's a myth.
by 3 meters of snow, 75 meters from the tree in the opposite direction of the tent.
Ooh, nice picture.
3 of them had sustained lethal injuries. 1 had a fractured skull, and 2 had fractured multiple ribs and suffered massive internal bleeding. The medical examiner believed the injuries had been sustained from a fall and compared it to a car crash. The injuries had been sustained while they were all alive and could not have been inflicted by another person. 2 had also been found with gaping eye sockets, and 1 of the women had a missing tongue. The last of the 4 had a broken nose and a deformed neck, but died of hypothermia. The most mysterious of all, 3 articles of clothing were later found to be abnormally radioactive. On May the 28th, the criminal case was discontinued with a cryptic and incredibly vague conclusion. The lead investigator writes in the final report, "The cause of death was an unknown compelling force which the hikers were unable to overcome." Not exactly the most satisfying answer and barely a conclusion at all. So, just in case the Galactic Empire had nothing to do with the death of the hikers, is it possible to explain some of the more enigmatic details in a less vague yet credible fashion? Let's give it a shot. The fact that Dubinina was missing her tongue has been taken way out of proportion. Some say that it was cut off or ripped out while she was still alive. Others say it was eaten by scavengers after death, while some even claim the tongue was later found somewhere else. But I've read the medical reports, and this is what it says. The diaphragm of the mouth and the tongue is missing. That's it. There's nothing about cutting or ripping or anything. I don't know how or where it began, but there seems to be an exaggerated importance placed on this missing tongue, while in reality, it's a rather minor detail. At least the medical examiner believed it to be a minor detail, otherwise he would likely have elaborated further. For example, the same section of the same report states, "Gaping orbits, the eyeballs are absent." Equally mysterious, right? Well, no, because the medical examiner does provide an explanation for both. Soft tissue injuries to the head are post-mortem changes to Dubinina's corpse, which was recently exposed to water prior to detection. He even adds putrefaction and decomposition in parentheses to clarify exactly what it means. And this was not even exclusive to Dubinina, as the 4 last bodies were all damaged due to the melting snow. Now, some who claim that her tongue must have been removed while she was still alive have pointed to the fact that she had about 100 grams of blood in her stomach. But that's not exactly true either. The relevant portion of the forensic examination reads, "The stomach contained up to 100 cubic centimeters of a dark red, slimy mass." That's about 10 centiliters of something, most likely food, mixed with something red, most likely blood. So we don't know how much blood was in her stomach, just that there was blood in her stomach. Which isn't that strange, given that she was suffering from massive internal bleeding.
It's just me, Dottie. We don't have any snacks.
One of the most mysterious aspects of this case is that 3 separate articles of clothing discovered on 2 of the bodies were found to be radioactive. Which does indeed sound a bit mysterious, but you have to keep in mind that almost everything is slightly radioactive. So we need more details. The radiological studies claim that under normal circumstances, an area of 150 square centimeters should not exceed 5,000 disintegrations per minute. Only 3 articles of clothing exceeded or equaled that limit at 5,000 dpm, 5,600 dpm, and 9,900 dpm. The only explanation given in the report is that the clothes were contaminated as radioactive dust fell from the atmosphere, or the clothes were susceptible to contamination when in contact with radioactive substances. In other words, they were unable to determine exactly how the clothes were contaminated, but it's not unrealistic to believe it to be a result of natural processes. But just in case it wasn't due to the elements, there may be an alternative explanation. Kolevatov had previously worked at a facility developing nuclear materials, and Krivonoshenko had previously worked at a top-secret plutonium production plant for nuclear weapons, and the 3 articles of radioactive clothing belonged to Kolevatov and Krivonoshenko.
Is that? Yeah, that makes more sense.
Around the time of the
UFO
hikers' disappearance, numerous sources claim to
They
have
just got
seen
the alien
UFOs in the form of orbs of light
That's bad.
moving across the
Didn't
night
get the
sky
dog
for a
ending.
few seconds up to several minutes. These include 3 soldiers and 2 different hiking groups. Some witnesses also claim that the indigenous Mansi population, as well as a group of geologists, had told them that they had observed fireballs in the sky around the time of the incident. The problem with UFO sightings is that they are, well, unidentified and often unverifiable as a result. Only one of the hiking groups reported to have seen the UFO during the night of the incident, while the other sightings occurred before or after. Then there's this. This is the very last photo taken with one of the hikers' cameras. It appears to be a photo of some type of light source taken in the middle of the night. Unfortunately, the photo is about as undescriptive as the UFO it is claimed to depict. It could no doubt be a photo of a UFO, and it could no doubt be a photo of a candle, flashlight, fire, stove, or anything else.
Yeah, it's literally
But
just a
let's
little light.
assume that it is a
What's Scream
photo
from
of
League of
something in the
Legends?
night
Should've had his
sky.
glasses
What could
on.
it potentially be depicting? I
Yeah,
can
like,
think
what
of a
is
few
this?
possibilities.
Might have
A
been an
rocket,
accident.
a piece of a rocket, man-made space debris during re-entry, a crashing aircraft, or perhaps a meteor. None of which would be too surprising given that this is the Soviet Union in the middle of the Cold War as well as the space race. So there would have been a lot of aerial activity. At the time when space exploration was about as fresh as a prince living in an affluent LA neighborhood, it's not surprising that people were unable to identify the mysterious lights. Regardless, it could not have landed close to the hikers as it would have been found by the search teams. And if the object had already been recovered, there should have been evidence in the form of a crash site, footprints, and other activity on the ground. So, given the fact that there is no obvious connection between the UFO and the hiker's disappearance, I'll put this in the spooky red herring box. So, what happened? Why did they leave the tent? Why was it slashed open from the inside? How did some of them sustain such major injuries while the others simply succumbed to the cold? Why were so many of them underdressed? I think the biggest mystery is how it's been able to remain a mystery given the abundance of information. So after spending the better part of this month hiring multiple Russian translators, reading through a massive amount of material ranging from theories about a KGB cover-up to a simple avalanche accident, this is what I believe to be the most credible explanation. First of all, why would they leave the tent? That seems to be the most important missing piece of the puzzle. I would argue that the only thing that could make them leave would have to be an immediate threat inside the tent. If something was outside, such as an animal or a UFO, then there would be no reason to cut the tent open. There were no signs of an avalanche, however, they could have escaped believing an avalanche was tumbling towards them. The problem with that theory is that the footprints show them walking in a calm and orderly manner down the slope, as opposed to running away in panic. So something caused them to panic inside.
But they left the tent because someone farted and it stunk, dude. Yeah, you had to rip it out. Like, rip out with a knife. You can get the zipper for his tent. Hold on, go. Yeah, just have like 24-hour 24-hour recording device.
Inside the tent, but once outside, they calmed down and made a conscious decision to walk down the slope. Now, take a look at this photo. The pipe sticking out of the tent entrance is the exhaust pipe of the internal stove. This was a completely unique and homemade design, as the leader of the group had built the stove himself. We know they had used the stove on the night of the incident before the incident took place, as partially eaten pieces of fried ham and bacon were found inside the tent. I think that after disassembling the stove and removing the exhaust pipe, the embers inside the stove were accidentally reignited. As the exhaust pipe had been removed, the smoke would have filled the tent in seconds. As they attempted to get control of the flame, they cut a few holes at the top of the tent to vent the smoke. When that didn't work and it became increasingly difficult to breathe, the side of the tent was slashed open and they all escaped in a state of panic. There's even more evidence to support this theory. Several members of the group were found with burn marks on both their bodies and clothing, which could definitely have been a result of the improvised fire under the tree, or perhaps a scalding hot metal stove. Some of them were also found with blood around their mouth, and coughing up blood could be a symptom of smoke inhalation. Then there's this photo, taken the day before the incident. The jacket has obviously been burned, but the question is how? It's possible that sparks from the stove had accidentally set the jacket aflame. Okay, so they make it outside and quickly realize what a terrible situation they're in. Sub-zero temperatures, no shelter, underdressed, in the middle of a snowstorm, in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere.
In the investigation I did for the school project, I find very difficult to be an avalanche. If there would have been an avalanche, it went that far due to the velocity of an avalanche. Even that, there wasn't any proofs about recent avalanche in the place, such as increased snow volume on the floor, things like that. That's not an explanation. So, like, what would you say, like, would be the best, like, theory for what happened?
At this point, I think one or more of them made a decision to head for the nearest shelter, which they would have known to be the woods. The reasoning behind this decision is likely multifaceted. The smoke from the tent could have made it impossible to stay within its proximity, and/or the smoke may have caused them to believe that the tent was on fire. Some of them were intoxicated, which could have affected their judgment as well as their sensibility to the cold. And they may also have believed to be closer to the woods than they actually were. So they finally reached the woods and immediately set out to make a fire. Some climbed a tree and scavenged the surrounding area, while those who are more properly dressed head a bit deeper into the woods. About 75 meters from the tree, 4 of them trigger a minor avalanche, taking them over the edge of a ravine with a drop of about 3 meters.
Yeah, it seems to happen a lot.
As the bottom is filled with rocks and ice, they sustain lethal injuries. 3 of the other 5 hikers decide to head back for the tent, while the remaining 2 slowly freeze to death around a fading flame.
I mean, this kind of makes sense about, like, the flame and they all run away. But, like, 9 of them run away from one tent. But it did say that they were under the influence a little bit, so I don't know how much that had to do with it as well. Maybe they're, like, run out, they get lost from their tent. I can kind of understand that. Like, it's even possible it was just, like, the smoke thing and then also a cover-up because people don't want people to know for some reason, or to think that anything like that could happen. But let me see. I finally solved it. Like how infographics always have
they had cut their way out.
Let's see what they say about it.
They had cut their way out of their own tent from the inside, their personal items and even a fresh meal perfectly laid out and ready to be eaten. They fled in a panic, mostly shoeless and some without socks, and none of their cold weather clothes despite the temperature being negative 13 degrees. A few hundred yards away, 2 bodies were found. Several hundred yards past them, 2 bodies were discovered under a tall tree, clothed in only underwear. One of the bodies had a 3rd-degree burn and a chunk of flesh from the right hand was in its mouth. All the bodies found were covered in bruises, cuts, and scratches. The rest of the bodies wouldn't be found until months later, and the shocking details only deepen what's the greatest mystery to ever come out of the Soviet Union. Late January 1959, and a group of 9 college students and recent grads are embarking on a trip of a lifetime. The group is made up of experienced hikers and skiers, but they've plotted a route that no Russian had ever taken. The trip would take them on a 16-day trip across the Urals and through the territory of the native Mansi people. It would be a grueling ordeal, exposing the group to bitterly cold temperatures and high winds, but the route avoided the dangers of trying to cross the mountains in winter by sticking to the lowlands. The trip would require great endurance, but the group of young Soviets was well prepared for the ordeal. The Ural Polytechnic Institute Sports Club had sponsored the trip, brainchild of Igor Dyatlov, who could have no way of knowing that his name would go down in infamy as he dreamt up the expedition. Right before leaving, however, the university administration mysteriously added a new member to the expedition, Semyon Zolotaryov. At 37 years old, he was 15 years older than most of the rest of the group. A hardened World War II veteran covered in tattoos, Zolotaryov cut an imposing figure. His inclusion to the trip is never explained by the university, despite suspicions that Zolotaryov is actually KGB. On January 23rd, the group leaves for Sverdlovsk, their jumping-off point for the expedition. Using personal journals and one communal journal discovered with the remains of the tent, investigators are able to piece together a very detailed picture of what happened in the days leading up to the mystery that would claim all their lives. Photos recovered from the group's cameras painted a perfect picture of a young group of happy-go-lucky college students and grads out on a grand adventure. As the group nears Sverdlovsk, Yuri Yudin has a painful flare-up of sciatica. The crippling pain forces him to abandon the trip, much to the group's dismay. Yudin hugs his friends goodbye, having no idea he's just cheated death. On January 28th, the group heads off into the mountains. They're never seen alive again. 8 days after the group's expected finish date, frantic family members and loved ones begin calling the university and the local bureau of the Communist Party. Search parties are immediately sent out, assisted by local Mensa hunters. Fellow students, prison guards, police, and even the Soviet military join the hunt for the missing trekkers. 5 days later, one of the search parties stumbles onto one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. The group's tent is discovered on February 26th after following their ski tracks for a full day. The tent is above the tree line on a mountain the Mansi called Kolatsiakal, or Dead Mountain. It's partly buried in the snow, and most mysteriously, all of the group's equipment is still neatly laid out as if they'd just settled in for the night. Ski boots and equipment is stacked by the door to the tent, and even food is laid out as if it's about to be eaten, completely untouched. What's not found is a body. Even more mysteriously, the tent had been slashed open on one side. Police wonder if someone slashed their way in for some reason, until a seamstress visiting the police station where the tent is stored stuns investigators by pointing out that the tent was cut open from the inside. That would explain the missing bodies. But what in the world would cause 9 healthy, strong Russian hikers to slash their way out of their own tent, apparently in such blind terror that they left behind all their vital cold weather clothing, including boots? Further investigation of the scene revealed the trackway of the hikers as they made their way to the tree line below. The prints clearly showed that almost all of the group had not put on their boots as they fled the tent, and some were walking barefoot. The prints continued for several hundred yards until they vanished at the tree line. There amongst the trees, 2 bodies are discovered under a tall tree. The bodies lay next to the remains of a small fire, and yet mysteriously they are only clothed in their underwear. Even stranger, 12 to 15 feet up in the tree, investigators find bits of torn skin and clothing on the trunk, along with some broken branches. One of the bodies has blackened fingers and a 3rd-degree burn on the shin and foot. Inside the mouth is a lump of flesh bitten right off the right hand. The other body has burned hair on one side of the head and is wearing a charred sock. Next, investigators find 2 more bodies back up the slope facing the direction of the tent. It's clear these 2 were trying to make their way back up to the tent. A 5th body is found a few days later, also apparently trying to get back to the tent. This one is found with a small fracture on their skull. All of the bodies, however, are covered in cuts, bruises, and scratches. Investigators are now assuming a homicide has taken place, yet none of the evidence points to the presence of anyone not from the original group. No murder weapons are found, and no signs of foul play. Toxicology reports come back clean. Investigators hope that the discovery of the 4 missing bodies may help shed light on the mystery. They would be wrong. As snow begins to melt, a Mansi hunter discovers the remains of a makeshift snow shelter 250 feet from the tree where the 2 burned bodies were found. Inside the shelter is bedding made out of branches, along with black cotton sweatpants missing one leg and the left half of a woman's sweater. Authorities begin to probe the snow in a search for the bodies, and soon discover the 4 missing bodies buried under 10 feet of snow on a rocky stream bed. One of the bodies has a head injury so severe that pieces of bone have been driven into the brain. 2 others have crushed chests and multiple broken ribs. One has a hemorrhage in the right ventricle of the heart. Another is missing its lips, and a third is missing its eyes, tongue, and part of the upper lip. The medical examiner remarks that the injuries would be similar to what would be expected if the bodies had been found at the scene of a car crash. The bodies are also discovered to be wearing pieces of clothing removed or cut from the 5 bodies discovered earlier, indicating these 4 survived longer than the first 5 found. Greatly deepening the mystery, several of these clothing items emit very high levels of radiation, and a radiological expert testified that as the bodies have been exposed to running water for several months, the original radiation levels must have been much higher. The investigation is abruptly closed on May 28th. The original intent had been to determine if a homicide had taken place. Whatever happened to the group of 9, it was clear they had not been murdered, at least not by anything human. Independent investigations are immediately launched, with dozens of different theories offered on what exactly happened to this group of seasoned hikers in great physical shape up in the Ural Mountains. What could have possibly caused 9 people to cut their way out of their own tent, flee into a raging blizzard with no cold weather gear or even shoes, and then be discovered with high levels of radiation, broken and mangled bodies, and 3rd-degree burns? Theories fly wild and free. One investigator discovers burn marks on several trees and concludes that some sort of heat ray was used on the hikers. He backs this conclusion up with reports from locals having seen strange balls of light in the sky in the area. The very last photo in one of the group members' camera is of strange flares and streaks of light white against a black background, though this is common of the final photo taken with a film camera. The possibility that the group was attacked by a Yeti is also raised, as one of the other group members' photos shows a dark hulking figure amidst some trees, yet no tracks except for the groups are ever discovered. Perhaps the Americans did it. Why was 37-year-old Semyon Zolotaryov attached to the expedition at the last minute by the university? His service record contained large gaps indicative of someone who was likely in fact working for an intelligence agency such as the KGB. Could the group have run afoul of CIA operatives or American mercenaries after a deal gone wrong with Zolotaryov? The most popular theory, however, is that the group inadvertently wandered across a test of a secret Soviet weapon. It's believed that some sort of missile launch went wrong and rained debris down on the tent, forcing the group to flee. That would explain the third-degree burns discovered on 2 of the bodies, and perhaps even the presence of a potential KGB agent, perhaps attached to the group to monitor them as they passed through a secret military testing site. Yuri Yudin, who was forced to abandon the trip due to his sciatica, would go to his death claiming that the group was removed from the tent at gunpoint and killed, either by American CIA agents or the Soviet military. Now, however, we finally know what really happened on that fateful night in 1959. In 2019, the case was reopened for investigation, and Andrei Kuryakov, a prosecutor, was put in charge. Using photogrammetry from the original investigation's photos of the scene, his group was able to better estimate the real location of the tent several hundred feet from where it was originally believed to have been located. This would prove crucial to understanding what happened that night. This new location placed the tent on a much steeper section of the mountain. Weather reports from the night in question show that the winds had been gusting up to 65 miles per hour, with temperatures at minus 30 degrees. Photographs from the hikers show that they had cut deep into the snowpack at a right angle to the slope as they pitched their tent, trying to shelter themselves from the incredibly strong winds. What would normally be a smart survival move would prove to be fatal. The group's cutting into the snowbank had inadvertently weakened the entire snowbank. As the blizzard raged, additional snow was heaped into the structurally weakened snowbank. Sometime in the evening, the snowbank gave way, and a 3-foot thick slab of snow slammed into the tent from above. With up to 1,000 pounds of snow smashing down on the skiers, immediate injuries would have been severe for those in the most unfortunate locations inside the tent. The incredible weight would have also prevented the group from getting most of their gear. But even more importantly, the sudden shift in the snow would have triggered an instinctual fear familiar to every mountaineer in the world: avalanche. This would explain why the hikers cut their way out of the tent and fled into the night, downhill and toward the tree line. The suddenly shifting snow would have appeared to them as the beginning of an avalanche, and their only hope of survival would have been amongst the trees. There was simply no time to retrieve any clothing or cold weather gear. The group eventually took shelter under the cedar tree where 2 of the bodies were discovered. They built a fire, but somebody was forced to climb up the tree to find dry branches nearer to the top, explaining the skin and bits of clothing found on the trunk. With massive wind gusts, however, no fire could warm the ill-equipped group, and it would not have taken long for 2 of them to succumb to hypothermia and die. The third-degree burns discovered on the body could have been from a desperate attempt to get warm, or from falling over into the hot coals after death. The flesh discovered in one of the corpse's mouths was likely the result of delirium, the individual biting savagely into his own hand. The 7 survivors then cut the clothes off their 2 dead comrades, explaining why they were found in their underwear. The group now split up, with 3 of them, likely the strongest, heading up the mountain to the tent to attempt to retrieve their cold weather gear and supplies. And at this point, the group likely realized an avalanche was not coming, but in the driving snow and dark of night, there would have been little hope of them finding their way back to the tent. Thus, the 3 froze to death on the slope of the mountain, only a few hundred yards from the salvation of warm clothing. The other 4 decided to build a snow survival shelter and huddle for warmth, likely to wait out the night and seek out the tent in the morning. However, the group hit yet another stretch of bad luck, as the spot they picked to dig lay right above a stream. This particular stream doesn't freeze in winter, and instead hollows out a deep tunnel under the snow and ice through which it flows. As the group dug down into the snow, they accidentally breached the tunnel, causing it to collapse. The 4 fell into the stream below and were buried under 15 feet of snow, the crushing weight of it causing the injuries discovered on the bodies. From here, scavengers discovered the bodies and ate the various missing parts of the corpses' faces. This still left the mystery of the high levels of radiation, though, but that too could be solved with some background info on the skiers themselves. One of the skiers had actually worked at the site of the world's 3rd worst nuclear accident, the Mayak nuclear complex. An explosion of radioactive waste had spread a plume 200 miles north into the East Urals. The hikers had even helped with the cleanup, and one of the other hikers lived in a village inside the contaminated zone itself. High levels of radioactivity would thus be likely amongst the personal clothing of both these individuals. The explanation had not satisfied everyone, but to date remains the most realistic and plausible explanation of what happened to the 9 hikers on that fateful night in the Urals. Ultimately, the only people who know the truth tragically died in the prime of their lives, and if the Soviet government was truly involved, then they've kept the secret of their deaths for 60 years.
That makes the most sense to me, that theory there. Just from an episode when the British attempted to find the Northwest Passage. Oh yeah, you talked about this one. The Franklin expedition. Interesting. It's crazy like how many there are like that. I could do a whole one just on hikers that turned to cannibals. Like that one seems really plausible to me. Like that makes sense. Like I would be able to believe that and like, okay, that has like some factual information to it. Like they're trying to get close to the fire. They're like so cold they can't feel it. They did find like that they were intoxicated a little bit. They're like somewhat like burning themselves. Look up what the Yeti picture Dyatlov Pass. Facts, not aliens, Yetis. Yeti Dyatlov. Whoa. Whoa, that is a creepy photo though. That could have just been one of the friends though. To be honest, I think it's one of the friends. I'll show you guys right now. Like this just has to be one of the friends. It's obviously one of the hikers. And it's taken on a really old film camera. But yeah, it's a beautiful shot though. Beautiful photo. Doesn't explain the left in orderly fashion, but to be honest, at this point, there's enough plausibility and more mundane explanations like avalanche or fire intent to discredit the far-fetched theories to me. My bet would be something related to military stuff. They found themselves that they shouldn't have witnessed. Can't forget this late 50s in the USSR in the middle of the Cold War, and both the USA and the USSR were doing experiments all the time. And they don't silence people with money like the US usually did. Gee, it is a Yeti. Yeah, it's obviously a human. Like, it's just a weird, shadowy shot, but it has to be one of their friends. But that's what everyone assumed is the Yeti. You got the brownies, let's go. Yeah, drinking coffee, don't drink coffee too late. Yeah, I read that one, Lumacy. I read that one. That's what I was saying. It's crazy how many, like, hiker cannibal things are like that. I do my baby photo, and Owen Beatty suggests the men did indeed eat one another. Oh my gosh, that's insane. Hello, D21 Dan, how you doing? Welcome in. Yeah, that definitely looks like a person. Like, someone's like, wait, let me get a photo. You know? It's one of their friends. My bet is on Ross. Yeah, I think that is definitely a friend for sure. Some other photos too. Showed this one in the thing, but this is the tent. No, hold on. I opened the wrong thing. This is how they found the tent. Obviously, like, there was a lot of snow on it. I'm heading to SAC early tonight. I got horrible sleep. No, good luck, Scott. I hope you get some good rest. Please take care. I don't know. That theory makes sense to me still. Like, say the snow fell on the tent, right? They're inside the tent. They get stuck in the tent because there's a bunch of snow on top of them. So that's why they have to cut their way out, because they can't get to the zipper. And they're freaking out. They're covered. It's heavy, right? So they need to get out. So they get out from their tent. They think there's an avalanche coming. So they try to walk away from it. They're freezing. They don't know what to do. But I don't know where they said all their stuff was laid out in orderly fashion, unless they meant like inside the tent. You know, maybe that just wasn't explained to us very well. The thing here is that if the investigators didn't resolve the case back in the moment, it's very difficult now to actually point to the real thing behind it. Like, we can't, if something happens to you, it's not our problem kind of stuff. So they're out there. What, Navy ships? I mean, yeah, I mean, I assume there's a bunch of stuff that goes on in every government that we don't know as civilians. One we don't need to know. Or if people did know, it'd probably cause mass panic. Wouldn't be surprised if they were too close to some secret military operation, perhaps a foreign military, and operatives didn't want to be discovered. Yeah, it's either that or they happened to be hiking somewhere, and they were hiking somewhere they shouldn't have been hiking, saw something they shouldn't have had, and it was a cover-up. Like, that could have also happened. That seems like the second most plausible. If it wasn't like a natural disaster, and something happened, and they all ended up passing away from, like, hypothermia, then the military thing is the next best explanation. But the Yeti and the aliens is wild. But I want to know some things you just can't know. Yeah, and they were saying that some were drunk as well, which obviously doesn't help everything. The obvious problem with all that they were killed to cover up someone up is they have repeatedly been stated to have been killed by things that could not have been done by humans. I mean, maybe they're just forced to stay out in the snow. You know, like taken out, but not like exactly killed, but just left in the snow. But the thing with the clothes being found on the other people's body is what makes sense to me of the theory that, okay, they thought an avalanche was coming. They went down to the trees. They're a little bit lost. They're drunk. They don't know how to get back to their tent. So they started a fire. They were staying close to the fire, which is why some of them were burned. And then when the other couple passed away and they realized there's no avalanche, they try to make their way back up to the tent. Some were probably like scared and didn't know what to do, so they went their own way, and those 4 ended up in the cave. And the other, 3, or other 2, whatever, ended up, it was been 3. The other 3 ended up trying to go back up to the tent, died on their way to the tent, and why the others had the other people's clothes, because they already passed away at that point. Those are probably 2 of the most drunk. They probably had a lot of alcohol in their body, and then were more likely succumb to the hypothermia faster than the others. So they took their clothes and ran off. And there could have been wildlife, which is why, makes up for things on the face. They fell down that hole, were crushed by the snow. There's a lot of things. Yeah. Scavengers, exactly. I don't know. So I don't know if I exactly believe, the entirety of the cover-up. Do I want to rule out that, say that Russia wouldn't have covered up? Because they might have during that time. Had tried to cover it up. Thing is, so they did find Chernobyl was definitely, indeed, an accident. Was it a dumb accident? Yes. Was it done on purpose? Absolutely not. Was it just a dumb, misleading thing? Yeah. But let's be careful about just jumping into conspiracy theories and believing them. We don't want to spread false information. We like to come somewhere from facts. They're saying about that, when people looking after them found the tent, there were signals that the military found the site before and moved things around. Interesting. Maybe they moved things around. Did they cause it? What if that snow thing was caused by something they were testing out there? Doesn't mean they might have covered up something that they had, but then it covered up the other stuff. Russian government lies all the time now. No saying about in the 50s. That's true. Hello, Terrell. Welcome in. How are you doing? But those 2 seem like the best explanations. Rather than, a Yeti or something, though, How much of the site was disturbed after the fact? Here. I guess they don't exactly know. Some of the tent. Here's some more of the photos. Some of these photos aren't appropriate to show on here, though. Let me show you this. Open image, new tab. Show you two more photos. Because some of them have socks on and stuff. That would make sense, why they would take some of the clothes off the others. They're trying to stay warm. Did I open it? There it is. Photos of what, Crystal? Hello, Terrell. Thank you for 27 months. How you doing? Welcome in. I hope you're well. Okay, so someone made like a diagram of basically what they think happened with the snow. Of the snow that like fell on the tent. This is more the theory that the snow fell on the tent. It was like a lot of snow though. And it crushed them while they were trying to get out of the tent. And then would have ran out, or like would have just like orderly walked out, but not like ran. But they thought like, okay, maybe there's another like avalanche coming. It's night. They're trying to see where things are coming from. They're disoriented, you know. Someone having their tongue removed would be consistent with torture interrogation. Yeah, it's interesting they don't exactly say though, like the tongue, how it was removed, or what it seemed like. They said it seemed to be like they quickly went over it. I guess we're having some sort of government secret. Some of them did work for nuclear weapons. There are a few hikers in the middle of nowhere. Some of them, well, they did work for the college, and they did work in engineering, and they did work in nuclear weapons and worked on private projects. So if you want to conspiracy theorize, like, oh, they're working on something that they shouldn't have known, or, you know, but why wouldn't they go back for the 10th hiker? And wouldn't the other hiker know more information as well? Not unless that was, like, the person that tipped them off. There's so many things you could do with, like, conspiracy theories, for sure. Hi, Lord Lito. Welcome in. Is this real? Yes. The Dyatlov Pass story, it is real. It's about 9 hikers who passed away to what? We don't know. Most of them hypothermia. But why is the question? You know, why was there, like, why did he have, like, flesh in his mouth, you know? Or the 10th hiker was a spy. Hi, Will. How are you doing? Welcome in. Already, I Got a Jet was a cute little topic that a lot of speculators blew out of proportion. Exactly. Hi, Carson. How you doing? Welcome in. Again, what's that Occam's razor? You know, things are more likely usually the more mundane explanation is usually the answer. But you don't know. We don't know, which is why it's interesting.